Good morning.
Jenny White is shaking her head. What's going on over there, Jenny White?
Oh, I'm trying to air our guest, Eric, Dr. Snyder has some articles that he's written about his work. And I was trying to upload them into the comments section so people could have them to read. And yeah. I tried that on Rumble and they ran all together and made like one giant URL. Why?
Your best friend Rumble. Your best friend Rumble.
You know, really, honestly, I'm dying to know how people work that thing. I mean, I must be just not that there aren't people who don't think I'm a complete moron, but I mean, I must be, considering the fact that that thing hates me. Well, John Boy's on this morning. That's a good thing.
Good morning, John.
And you know, he's going to be on next month talking about RFID tags and cows.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're going to need to. People are a little slow getting on this morning. I guess it must be it's summer. People are like, I don't want to get up and watch a podcast. What are you people doing? I'm sleeping. I'll watch it later.
Who wouldn't want to watch Live with Jenny White?
Right? I mean, when there are so many other equally horrible choices out there.
You know, I've noticed since Session is out that our all our anonymous Twitter followers have dropped a little bit.
Yeah, I mean people I think want a lot of real-time news, and when you're giving them that, you know, they like. Plus, I think too, I'm sure actually so many people that are followers of ours get burned out during the legislative cycle. They're like, these people are crazy. I'm not sure why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just done with this. And then they kind of evacuate the space for a while. And then until the next February rolls around and they're like, what's going on? So, yeah, I mean, and my internet has decided it's going to act funky today. So this should be interesting. Plus, I think the other thing is too, there's so much out there going on right now. If you, even the people that we know that are, you know, on here every time we're on, people get exhausted. I mean, it gets to the point where how can you even use your discernment, because your brain is just full of this and that and the other thing, and it's just so hard to critically think anything out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, but I digress. And our guest is out of state with his family and doesn't want to be on this podcast. Like most people. So let's bring on our guest because what he's talking about today is, well, I'm going to kind of
the most important thing that's in the whole, hemisphere of the world here, the debt, the global debt, all in, if you want to even go that far, but just United States debt.
Yeah, it's so hard to wrap your brain around. So let's bring on Dr. Eric Snyder this morning. Good morning, Dr. Snyder. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. Contrary to what Jenny may say, I enjoy my family tremendously. Been with them the last few days, and so this is a brief break, and then back to road tripping with them. So,
are you saying you needed that break?
Having me on.
Well, you were suggested to us as a guest by our friend Amy Cerato at PikeOffOTA.
She's a legend.
And she told me, she gave me kind of your background before you sent me more information today. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Sure. So was a faculty member at University of Oklahoma for 2 years, then was crazy, left a tenure track faculty position, took a head of school position, have done that in the private sector for the last 10 years, and actually now transitioned. I'm helping develop a children's magazine called Red, White, and Blue for students throughout the United States. It's a national magazine. So a friend of mine in Iowa, we've started that. And so that's been kind of the passion project of late. And through all of that, somewhat like Dr. Cerato, very expansive in interest and curiosity, I stumbled upon the US debt clock, and that resulted in a lot of research and maybe a lot of headaches for my family as I'm delving into it deeper and deeper. So that's a little bit of my background. I've lived in Oklahoma for the last 13 years. Absolutely awesome people in the state, made very, very dear friends. So couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of that community from the standpoint. And we'll see what the next phase in life looks like. I'll talk a little bit about Red, White, and Blue at some point. We should put that link in the bottom too, because it's a great kids magazine, awesome content delivered to their door in the paper form, which is nice.
Now, so you already have that going?
Yeah, we did a pilot issue in June and July. And so we're working out the kinks on the back end, because I think once we launch, it'll be pretty substantial nationally. But I can tell you that individual packaging of subscriptions is not easy. So you need that all automated to your press. And once we're above 4,000 subscriptions, we'll have a really, really good printing company doing it, which I think sets us apart from anybody else out there. And really, there's nobody doing that type of content. So.
No, there is not. I mean, when I was a kid, way back in the day, when I was a kid, we used to have Weekly Reader that came out.
Yes.
And Weekly Reader was, I mean, that was back in the day when it was not political, and you would just get some kind of fun little snippet about something. Yep. And we used to love Weekly Reader. And then, of course, it became a woke thing. Sure. And then I don't even know if we have it anymore. So yours is called Red, White, and Blue.
Yeah, redwhitebluemagazine.com. It's pretty awesome. The great content, good writers. I'll be recruiting. I have some good connections to great teachers who can put some of their favorite activities in it. And then it's wholesome, patriotic content too. So like the first issue, we did a whole story on Anna Strong, who was one of the first female Revolutionary War spies. And she used semaphore to hang on her clothesline to communicate with our troops and our spies. And there's just those stories that a lot of people, don't consider. So if people want to check it out, it's a great option for family and for kids. My daughter gets very excited when she gets one in the mail, because kids today don't often get mail. So it's like the old highlights magazines. We're just kind of throwback to the 90s. And then we have an iPad version that they can always go through. So
I love that so much.
Yeah. Well,
I almost want to talk about that more.
Well, probably is more important because it involves our kids. However, I'm with Michael. And if we don't talk about the debt and the US debt clock, the issue that I always return to in all of my conversations with friends is until you fix the money, it's going to be very hard to fix all of the societal problems that come with that. And follow the money is real. And the golden rule is real. The golden rule is he who has the gold rules the negotiations. So probably a good segue into discussing the debt clock.
Well, let's go. I mean, let's do it.
Okay.
I'll pull it in so you can see everybody in case people haven't looked at
And I
it.
can put, I think
I can put it up, Jenny. I've already got it up.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so a little bit of backdrop. It's somewhat ironic how I even stumbled across this. I could tell you in 2008, I was in southwestern Pennsylvania and I was sitting in a computer lab and I actually logged on to the US debt clock. I remember distinctly doing this, probably in about December because it was snowing in southwestern Pennsylvania. And I remember thinking, wow, that's really interesting. Like, why are we now all of a sudden tracking this deficit and spending? What do these terms mean? And probably kept looking at it for the rest of the year, then went on to grad school at Utah State and then was at University of Kentucky, kind of forgot about it. But then when I got hired at University of Oklahoma, I started teaching their quantitative research method classes. So I would pull data from the US debt clock, ironically, just as samples to the students to get them interested. Sometimes that's a good way to do so and to get them thinking about, our nation. What is money? What is debt? Why does that matter? How have we accumulated this, et cetera? So all of that, fast forward, become the head of school, working there for about 9 years. And in October of 2023, I'm with a group of students in SeaWorld doing a class trip. And I'm in the bunk room and I log on to the debt clock just by chance. And it says in the top right corner that basically on the screen, it says from 9 to 12 o'clock tonight, there'll be a secret window that opens. And of course it's Pandora's box, right? So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I'm like, here we go. So at 9 o'clock, I log on and it has the quote, the biblical quote, when Jesus went in the temple and flipped the table on the money changers. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting start to this. So clearly my curiosity is piqued. And what happened was that may have been a Sunday night. From that point on, every Tuesday and Thursday, they would upload a new secret window. And the secret windows were telling the story in a sense of monetary history from not just biblical times, through Greek, through Roman, but also to current day with the formation of the third central bank of the United States. And that's basically how these articles ended up coming to fruition. I had emailed George Magazine, which is 2.0, and just said, I'm surprised you guys aren't writing about this. It seems to be very timely and critical in our understanding of what's happening at a global level, but also at a national level with our monetary system, as well as at individual state levels. So I'm sure you guys have seen, Florida passed gold and silver as legal tender, as did Texas in the last 2 months. These trends are only going to continue to roll downhill as we continue to have inflation. Now, whether or not you have inflation or not is all predicated on how you measure inflation. They call it the CPI. I call it the CPI. Because they change those data points all the time.
Okay, but hold on for somebody, because Michael's like, yeah, 100%. Okay, for those of us.
We need to rewind a couple things.
Okay.
Yes, let's do that, shall we?
Unpack.
Well, Jen, you have a question first, Jenny, or do you want me to?
No, I'm just going to listen to you take over that.
First, I think it's important, Eric, to I think people don't understand that relationship of how the money's created in the first place.
Sure.
Between the United States and the Federal Reserve Bank, and that the Federal Reserve Bank's not an actual United States entity, and it's not part of the government. It's not part of we the people. So if you can kind of start there.
Okay. I'll go back because I like going back to 1776. I think it's important. We're in our 250th semi-quincentennial celebration, and this matters. So if you go back, historically, when we fought the American Revolutionary War, we were printing the Continental, which is fine. And oftentimes when you're fighting wars, you need to print paper currency. The founders were well aware of that. And so by the time we had won the Revolutionary War, the amount of continental currency that had been printed was substantial, so it devalued in its worth. Knowing so, this is one of the complex parts of it that many aren't going to necessarily grasp. But knowing this, the founders set up fail safes through the documents. And Thomas Jefferson, I always go back to, was beyond brilliant in how he did this. So they basically had the Articles of Confederation, your Continental Congress is operating, and then we amended that to adopt the U.S. Constitution in 1789. The Continental was printed into the oblivion, and we established a system of weights and measures. And in order to have sound money, you have to have weights and measures. And so Thomas Jefferson figured that out. They took all the Spanish mill dollars, all the global currency, whether it was from France or Britain, they melted them down, and then they took the average of that, measured in grains, and basically they made a dollar, 371 and a quarter grains. So if you're ever talking to individuals or your financial advisor and you ask them what a dollar is and they tell you it's 371 and a quarter grains, I can assure you, you probably want to talk to that individual.
Yeah. Now, now when you're talking grains, you're talking grains of silver?
Grains of silver, yes.
Yeah.
Because, and there's a fantastic book, I'll put it in the chat, Coins Financial School, which was written, I think, in the late 1890s. But it lays out why this matters. So a dollar was 371 and a quarter grains. They then established the ratio of 15-1. So a gold eagle was basically that 15-1 ratio, so 23.7 grains of gold. And then a copper penny or cent was 1/100th of basically what you had in your silver content. Why that matters is it was actually impossible to say that your dollar was worth less than a dollar of silver, because the dollar was a unit of measure, just like a foot is a unit of measure, just like a yard is a unit of measure. And that's what stabilizes your currency. And by making the ratio there, if you want to adjust because you're having issues with oversupply of gold or silver, you just adjust the weights. And then you can do that through the coinage acts, which they've done over time. Have you ever heard this, Jenny?
Never.
Okay. So this is why it's very important.
Can't you tell from looking at my face? Where
I can tell a little bit from looking at your face. So that held true. We had a Coinage Act of 1792, which spells that out, and people can go look at. We had modifications to that a few times. Then 1834, we had another Coinage Act. Go through the Civil War, which was a critical time point in U.S. history in the sense of somewhat the country being stolen. By 1873, we shifted from a silver standard, a bimetallic or a trimetallic standard, to a gold standard, which a lot of people love, right? And that's usually where a lot of people start in their conversations about going back to a gold standard. But what was unique in the United States is we had a bimetallic, which again, with copper really is a trimetallic standard that actually allowed free coinage. So the federal government, if you mined, just like Bitcoin, Michael, when you mine, right? If you were mining silver, gold, copper, you could take it to the US Mint and they would stamp it with our government to make it a coin. Otherwise, it's just a round. That's the distinction in the coin world that a lot of people aren't aware of. So coin is government minted. And that 371 and a quarter grains is established till 1873. And then we go into the 1900s, which many people, I don't know how many.
Okay, let me stop 1 second. So if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So, and this made sense to me. Let me make sure if I'm getting it. So a round is just like a piece of silver, right? Yep. And if I wanted to take it to some place that buys silver, I could sell it.
Correct.
Just for the value of the silver.
Correct.
but I can't go to the grocery store and say, here's this silver round, give me, 47 loaves of bread. Well, no, today it would be like a loaf of bread for a round of silver. But anyway, I digress. So if it's stamped, if you take that round and you get it to the
silver eagle.
Is it the Treasury that does that then?
Yes. The mints, the U.S. government mint, if you go to their website, coins all of the government coined basically supplies. So what the problem today is it's like the best word is verbicide, right? So
is what?
Verbicide. Basically, they've manipulated the language over time where individuals don't understand what terminology meant. When you're talking about a weight and measure being a dollar, and that a dollar could only be silver, and that today you exchange a Federal Reserve, it's really a token, a piece of paper, right, and we call it a dollar as a common term. It's so far gone for what the original intent of sound money principles was at that time to what it is current day. So why does that matter in reference to what Michael was saying? Well, throughout U.S. history, we've had 3 central banks. We had the first Bank of the United States, basically that came out when Alexander Hamilton's time was going on. It's Federalist versus anti-Federalist. This battle is constantly going on. We had the second central bank of the United States, which Andrew Jackson destroyed, right? He goes into the den of thieves. He roots them out. He calls them vipers. He doesn't renew the charter. And then we go the whole way from that point to 1913. And that's when the formation of the Federal Reserve is, which is the great book, The Creature from Jekyll Island by J. Edward Griffin, that many people know. And that was when they went to Jekyll Island and they established how this financial system that we currently operate in would function over the next period of time. Clearly, there's many pieces that happen through there, but we're in our third central bank. The founders warned us about having centralized banking. That was supposed to be to the states. So,
well, Eric, I want to just add one little thing here. Since you were just talking about the 371 grains of silver, if you convert that to the buying power, the purchasing power of today's time, Jenny, then that 371 grains, that's like 8.85% of an ounce. So an ounce of silver start like $37, $38. So $1 actually has the purchasing power, should have the purchasing power, basically about $31. That's how you want to think it. If you actually, if the dollar actually represented, the 371 grains of silver because of the price of silver, which is pretty suppressed anyway, but because of the price of silver, that dollar should represent about $31 worth of buying purchasing power.
It's very difficult. So this is where I understand a lot more about why, let's say the youth, a lot of people talk about the youth living with their parents, etc. Well, if you just go back, when JFK was assassinated, so 1964 to 1968 was the last time any of our coinage had silver in it. We call that constitutional silver. So dimes, quarters, half dollars. So in 1968, they did 40% in Kennedy half dollars and then phased that out. Okay, if you were making $1.25 minimum wage in 1960, that would be 5 silver quarters with 90% silver in those. If you purchased if you were paid the same way in 2025 with 5, let's say $1.25, but you just looked at the silver value of it, your equivalent, basically minimum wage would have to be, they're probably about $6 a quarter with the silver content that's in it. So you're doing 5 of them, $30 would be your minimum wage to have an equivalent purchasing power of what many generations before us had, which is why when my parents or grandparents say to me, well, we used to work for the summer and buy a car. It's like, well, great. In Oklahoma, you're making $7.15 an hour and you're never going to get there because they've debased the value of our purchasing power and currency so much. And our mindset isn't such that we truly understand money because we really won't teach it in schools. This is not a concept. I've reviewed every personal financial literacy standard in the country. There's no one that teaches this in any public education sector. They won't even define what money is. So however are kids supposed to understand that you need a unit of measure? It's a very difficult premise. So I sympathize a lot of times with the youth of today. I'm not that old, but it is frustrating because even with gold price, right now, gold is at $3,400 an ounce. And you could say gold's at an all-time high, or you could say your dollar purchasing power is at an all-time low.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. I look at it as that purchasing power, but we'll get into that whole purchasing power.
Okay, wait, hold on though. I want to stop now and do it because I think that's where most people, and I'm going to say me, we're doing this podcast for me today, boys. Okay.
Perfect.
So I have a gold coin. Oh, hey, it's not just me, Lisa. Okay. So we're doing it for Lisa too. So I have a gold coin. Let's start here. Maybe this will get me down the road, me and Lisa down the road. Okay. So I have a gold coin. If I take that to a gold and silver dealer and I just hand it to them, they'll give me back $3,400,
$3,300, whatever the spot price is right now.
Okay. They'll
Probably
give me
with a percentage more, but
$3,300.
yes.
So now I have a fat stack of $100 bills and I just gave my gold over here. So clearly there's a disconnect between this one little thing and this fat stack. And that's what we've got to get to the bottom of. That's what I don't understand. I mean, I can say, yeah, I know we went off the gold standard. I can say, yeah, I know we're printing way more money than we should be. And that's what's suppressing the power of the dollar. And I understand that the central bank is just a bunch of rich people who are private individuals who are laughing every dang day about how stupid we are, that we're just forking them all over this money. I get that, but I don't know how to fix it. And I don't know where the disconnect is. Does that make sense?
Total.
Okay, then fix it.
Well, yeah, that is a more difficult issue. I think I'm trying to unpack kind of what you're asking here.
Well, let me give Jenny a reference real quick, Eric. Jenny, remember when we did the podcast on the Federal Reserve?
Yes.
And I gave you that analogy of the baker with the pies. You remember?
Yeah, but
that?
I don't remember it. So tell me again.
Well, I'm not going to go through all that because it takes a couple minutes. But basically, there's only so many assets, like what Eric was talking about with gold and silver. There's only so many assets that you have, available or counted, or what's going to be mined in the future. So every time that they print money, they're not creating more assets. They're just dividing what's already there into smaller and smaller pieces. That just makes the value of what you have go down because they don't have more assets to make that. But we'll talk about that. I'll replay that analogy for you, after we get off of here.
It's essentially supply and demand. I mean, right now, well, the debt clock says we have $37 trillion in debt, but really it's about, I think it's more like 270 trillion when you count unfunded liabilities. And so, that's a little demoralizing for people to grasp because that would be like every tree would be printed into the oblivion to make 270 trillion paper dollars. It's just almost unfathomable.
Well, let's do this too. Let's unpack what the national debt is, because the way I understand it, the national debt is simply the interest we're paying to rich people on the money they've been loaning the state, the government.
Well, the interest is there. The largest budget items, if you see on the screen, interest on debt. So it's $1 trillion. We're paying $1 trillion on the debt that we've won. So that's an important point. When the Federal Reserve, which is a private entity, a private corporation, when they print, well, when they create currency, it's really a token, and language matters. And I'm sorry that I'm saying these things, but it
it's
really
good.
does. When they print that, basically they're adding to the supply. We call that M2. It's the M2 money supply. Every dollar that is printed has a charge for printing it, and then a interest that is collected from the American people, basically for loaning that money from this private corporation. As opposed to if the United States Treasury, which he just pulled up, Abraham Lincoln, if you scroll up just a hair, he issued 450 million is what that said there. If you want to pull that, future USA Treasury dollars, if you put your tab over top of that. Right. Yeah. Future under money creation, just put your mouse over it and it'll pop up JFK.
Okay. Yeah, on the state. Okay.
Okay. So this is a huge distinction. Oh gosh, it's very complex in a way because it's all legalese. Lincoln printed the first United States Treasury dollars directly from the US Treasury, not from a central bank. In doing so, many people argue he signed his death warrant, right? Because then he was assassinated. That money was interest-free, debt-free notes. So the Treasury wasn't collecting any interest from the American public on that. They were allowed to do it. They argued that they were allowed to do it through changes in the legislation, etc. They call them greenbacks, ironically. And I think in the future, our new currency will be called reds because you're somewhat inverting everything, right? Whether it's food pyramids, they call it Exter's pyramid in our monetary world. So Exter was one of the Fed chairs. Everything leads down to what is good money, and good money is always hoarded, which is why Michael probably has Bitcoin, right? That's one of the issues with Bitcoin is people are hoarding it because they'd rather hold Bitcoin than US dollars or US treasuries because they don't have the faith that they did. And they don't want to spend their Bitcoin, just like you won't want to give your gold coin to the coin shop because it's sound money. Now, Bitcoin, that's all its own debate, but for sure, gold and silver, they're constitutionally determined to be legal tender. And that was written way back in the day. When Lincoln basically coined this, a lot of people don't understand, but in The Creature from Jekyll Island, they explain he met with Russia at the time. Russia actually put their ships in New York and in San Francisco, which prevented the British and French from destabilizing our nation, which was very young, which is why Lincoln did the Emancipation Proclamation, in my opinion, because he knew we needed to unite so that they wouldn't balkanize the states. And if they could do that, then they would control all of it again, and that would be problematic. So he started coining, basically printing our own money to allow the American people to rebuild, as opposed to borrowing it from the European central bank powers or the private corporations' powers. And many Americans have no idea this is the case. If they did, they would probably revolt, to be honest, because their own money, it's an IOU nothing.
Yeah. Really. And just to recap, Eric, just so people understand, we have a treasury in the United States. We have our own treasury that can print, mint, we'll say mint money. They can print, I guess, if they wanted to, actual currency. But they can mint money. And then there's the Federal Reserve where we borrow money from a private bank that literally prints money out of thin air. I just want people to really understand the differentiation there, because people just think that all those dollars that are out there are ours, actual American, printed dollars. They're not.
So let me just throw a couple of these up so you can help them out. So Gracie says, printing more money, but then not adding more gold to cover it. Does that sum it up?
Yeah. So actually in March of 2020, our banking requirements in the United States, they can have zero reserves.
Yeah.
Which means,
joke?
Oh no, this is real. And this is why I would lose sleep at night, right? Because I have a lot of friends, family, and I worry about these things because here's a fun fact for you. The FDIC, your federally insured banking system, right? It's $250,000 for each account that you have. Do you know how much insurance they actually have for every $100 for the
Nothing,
depositors?
probably.
$1.31.
Yeah.
They have $1.31 to cover. So if you actually have a bank run, it collapses all those banks. And there's a lot of historical context there for why you have to have the reserves. And the initial banks in the United States used to have 90% reserve stat, so you could loan a little bit more. But now they basically, it's very ironic. If you go in and get a car loan, essentially the bank has very little liability for any of that, because you're just taking the loan and then that goes off into the abyss, and maybe the Fed puts it on the balance sheet and the US Treasury looks at it and they can, do what they want. But that's why the revaluation of gold is probably more likely than anything.
Yeah. And I want to add something also, Eric. We're not necessarily talking like, I think the entire banking complex itself is evil in one way or another, but I'm not talking about your local bank down on the corner, your down on the corner, your credit union. We're talking the mega banks, you know, the global mega banks that, basically own and control this world. And what they want, they want your little bank to go out of business so they can buy all their assets, just like they do in all these big runs. But I just want to make it clear,
Manhattan.
We're not talking about your little bank, down on the corner saying these people are bad or doing this. It's completely out of their control. They're just providing a local service, and they're not necessarily the bad guys in this situation.
It's ironic that right in front, so on the deck clock there, it says DeFi bankless future. Many people don't also understand the distinction between a credit union and a bank. The guarantees of those are different entities. So DeFi meaning basically decentralized financial bankless future. This is a unique one for people, but if you study law, there's three forms of law. There's common law, which is the law of the land. There's maritime law, which is the law of the sea, and there's trust law, which is the law of the air. Those three terms matter substantially. A bank is technically under maritime law because you have to think about, and these words are chosen for specific reasons. You have the currency running through the river, right? The river current. You have the banks on the side of the river. It's maritime in its jurisdiction. Any entity that has a ship in its naming is technically under that. So corporate documents, citizenship is different than citizen. And these legal terms carry tremendous weight. And I'm not sure we teach individuals the importance of the terminology, especially in law schools, et cetera. But that's a whole nother podcast. So when they say bankless future, to what Michael's saying, that doesn't mean there's no banks that exist per se, because most people, a credit union and a bank is a synonymous term. I actually think that the future will be similar to what was established originally, where individual states will have credit unions, because states had the option to help manage the monetary system, right?
Okay, then explain the difference between a credit union and a bank.
Well, different insurers, right? And a credit union is a nonprofit entity. So they invest the money back into the communities that exist. So here's a point. Oftentimes, U.S. citizens don't understand, well, how could you not have income tax, or how could you not have property tax? Well, one, if you read the land ordinances, you used to be able to, what they used to do for taxation at the federal level was if you had a third of gold, silver, whatever commodity was underground on your property, they would take a third of that. You would keep 66, 67% of it. And that was to the federal coffers. You could do a similar model basically with credit unions, where credit unions became the lenders. So they may lend not at usury rates of 22 or 23%, but at 0 to 3%. And then you take all the percentage gains that these credit unions would have, and let's say you omit property tax in Oklahoma. Because if they're making 3% on every mortgage, every car loan, et cetera, they would have so much money coming in that they could offset all property tax. This is just an idea.
Well, I don't hate that idea, because I mean, that's, and you're saying that's what they did originally in states?
Well, the land ordinances, you didn't have property tax. It was
Right.
originally, yeah. So that's how they paid for all the federal taxation. It just was written in the land ordinances. Okay, if you had gold that was found on your land. Now imagine, look, our oil companies in the state of Oklahoma, imagine all the land they own. If you took a third of all of that they extracted and you put it into the state coffers, do you realize the sovereign wealth fund that you would have for the people? You wouldn't have to tax them at all.
I mean, honestly, that's kind of mind blowing. I've never even considered that. I do want to get this question in. So Lisa said, my mouse is not working. That's not what Lisa said. I'm just telling you, this is my issue right now. I don't know
Jenny,
why.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back, Jenny.
Okay. So Lisa says, so cutting a pie into 16 pieces doesn't make more pie. It just makes more pieces. They're just smaller pieces. So is that kind of what we're doing with the printing of the money?
No, because it's an unlimited, the size of the pie is unlimited. They have the unlimited license to print as much currency as they want without any backing of it in any capacity. So tomorrow,
and we gave that to them in 1913.
That's when it started. There were a lot of pieces, the Bretton Woods agreements, the removal of the silver from all the coinage, the Nixon in 1971, removing basically the ability to turn in dollars or treasury notes for gold, right? So,
well, he took us off, wasn't it Nixon that took us off the gold standard?
Yeah, yes. In a way, I mean, the gold standard, it was the redemption of gold at the international level.
Okay.
What was happening? Okay, so in one of the coinage acts in 1834, they adjusted the ratio from 15-1 to 16-1. And a lot of people would say, well, why would you adjust that ratio? Well, part of it was because France and Britain started manipulating their gold and silver content so that they could purchase. It's basically, I think it's called Michael would help me with the term, not an espionage bet, basically they would buy silver in the United States that they could sell then in France, and they would make money off of that sale. So the transaction, so it manipulated the current money that we had in a sense that it became problematic. So we had to adjust our ratios to be competitive at a global level. It does make it worse, Lisa. I'm sorry.
I want to get this. I want to get this question in from Dorn, because I think I think this is what the audience is looking for today. Okay. So he asks, how is our health, auto, house, life insurance? How is everything that we have impacted by what I think is a pretty good term, inflatable inflation?
It's impacted in that if you have $37 trillion in debt and $270 trillion in unfunded liabilities, if you look historically, not saying that this is going to happen, the only way out of that is to print the currency into oblivion and then release a new one. They did this in World War II with the German mark, right? In November of that year, you may have had, 1 mark may have bought a loaf of bread or 16 marks may have bought a loaf of bread. By the following year, over an 11-month period, it was something like 1 million marks would be used.
Yeah, that's what led to Hitler, actually. That was the Weimar Republic.
These things have reoccurred over time. Yeah. We're somewhat in the final stage of the dollar's hegemony as an entity that isn't backed by anything. There's a distinct difference there. If you could technically back the currency with gold and silver, which if you scroll down, do you see where it says US?
Well, it's on his computer, so I can't do it.
So at the bottom of the debt clock, it says USA hidden wealth. Those, yeah. So precious metals reserves, mineral reserves, real estate, land. I think it was on March 25th of this year, President Trump signed the Sovereign Wealth Fund into law. And again, what does that mean? Well, if you're taking the percentages of the value of all those entities at the bottom, stock market, recaptured assets, total hidden wealth, etc., it says an asset-backed dollar. That's different than what our current dollar is. So in my opinion, what's happening is you're transitioning from a Federal Reserve dollar to a USA asset-backed dollar, which will be backed by a basket of commodities. Probably it could be 40% gold, 30% silver. And there was a unit white paper that was written in 2023. It's called a unit. And ironically, in the Coinage Acts, we use the term coin or unit. If people want to read that, they state, and the BRICS nations were talking about the importance of it. They basically state within that document that a coin or unit would be used as the terminology. And so it's ironic that the BRICS nations use unit and they back it by 40% gold. Gold is always at the top. And then, silver, land, natural gas, minerals, all those other things. If you can back all those commodities, it's important.
I feel like I got lost again. It's literally so hard.
Well,
I think that's part. I think you're right. We haven't taught this in school. That isn't anything, that anybody's teaching anybody. They want kids to be able to know how to do a checkbook, but they don't really care that they know where their money comes from. So I completely agree, just like so many other things we're not teaching in school. But the point of the matter is, so many of us today, even me, I'm over 60, and I didn't know any of this stuff.
Sure.
And I do a lot of reading on my own. So, because we're already at 47 minutes, which I warned you was going to happen.
Well, let me differentiate one important point that's on there. So do you see how it says USA hidden wealth?
Yeah, let me move it over.
Okay, if you scroll back up to the top left-hand corner, I'm going to help people understand. Yep, so slide to the left and you'll see. Okay, do you see how it says U.S. national debt?
Yes.
It does not say USA. This is what I believe to be the case. And I understand that the word believe has the word lie in it. So take it with a grain of salt. But if people want to go read, they can do so. And I wasn't necessarily taught this in school either. We write the Declaration of Independence. The Articles of Confederation are established. The Articles of Confederation in Article 1 is very clear. And it says, the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. That is not the same legal entity as the United States. The United States Constitution was written and ratified and came into law in 1789. So you have to think of it as the Articles of Confederation are written, they're then amended through the U.S. Constitution. And if you read the third article that I wrote, what does the U.S. debt clock foresee? I lay out a chart of how Thomas Jefferson actually set up the legal entities. This is why we say Thomas Jefferson survives or Thomas Jefferson lives, because he set up the fail-safes in the legal documents. And when JFK, this is a side note, but when JFK was president, he had all the Nobel Prize winners in the White House. And he made the joke when he was talking to him that he had the greatest English literary scholars all in one room in the White House, except for when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. There's a reason he said that. And I write in the articles, I didn't know that JFK was going to write a book about Thomas Jefferson. There's letters of correspondence there that he wanted to write. So I really went back and started looking, okay, what was Thomas Jefferson doing? The United States of America is based off of Greek city-states. It's the Greek Confederacy. And then you got to think the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic is the United States. The Greek Confederacy is the United States of America. Federalist, anti-federalist, right? This is how you can view those terms. So when they put U.S. national debt, that's a distinct difference from the United States of America and its legal entity. When they printed the Continental into the oblivion and then created the United States, they moved the Continental debt under the United States corporate document, absolved it, and created the new coinage. Right? And when they adjourned, They adjourn, sign, die, just like Oklahoma's legislature does. That doesn't mean they absolve that entity. I've always been taught, well, the Articles of Confederation, they don't have as much value. You need to read the Constitution. No, you need to read them in conjunction. And if you look, they actually set up both Congresses within those documents. And that's where that table is. And I have a friend in Massachusetts, Jack Lander, that we've kind of put this out. I don't know anyone else that would teach this or has ever discussed it in this manner, but I think it matters tremendously. And that's why they're saying USA Treasury dollars. That's different than the US Treasury. The USA is the United States of America. So Scott Bessent right now is overseeing the US. But if you look at the signing of documents, I know people have been concerned about the auto pen. It's very clear to me that President Trump sometimes signs as President of the United States, sometimes signs as President of the United States of America, right? Because you can be the President of the United States of America, which is a separate corporate entity than the United States. It's very interesting, right? This is a whole new show.
So well, just to recap, the republic that was created by the Constitution, is that an actual corporate entity or not?
When they capitalize letters, the United States, that's legal terms. This is why grammar in our school it's more important than anyone can imagine, and you have to be able to read that cursive. And so when you go in there and that word's not capitalized, or like if you read the articles, it's the United States in Congress assembled. The A is lowercase. That's different than the United States Congress. Yeah. Wow. So why I love Thomas Jefferson is he was a man of peace, but in 1803, after he came back from Europe, where I think he was collecting all the treaties, basically he created West Point. I think he hid all the treaties at West Point, which our military would have, which is why the British burned the White House in 1812, because they were trying to burn all those documents, in my opinion. It's a good movie, if nothing else. So all of these, so the debt clock is spelling this out in real time. And if you know the chart that I sent in the email, Jenny, do you have that one? Can you pull it up?
Yeah, hold on one second. I mean, Lisa, I mean, we're all in the same boat here. I mean, everybody's just like, what the heck? Hold on a second. Let me pull this up.
Yeah.
So while you're pulling that up, Jenny, Eric, the entity that owes all that debt is not the actual United States of America Republic.
The United States of America Confederacy. What I always tell people is everything they vilified may have not been that bad. They attacked the Confederacy hand over fist. They didn't even want us saying that word, right? So when you read that document, the Greek city-states, we teach Greek mythology in school. We say all the Greek stuff is mythology. The Roman Republic. When they asked Benjamin Franklin, what do we have? He said a republic if you can keep it.
Right.
Because the difficulty is the federal powers will grow so much that you're going to have to reset it. Thomas Jefferson knew that. He was trying to tell everybody that then. How do you set the fail-safes? You do it by going back to the original entity, which is the United States of America. Okay, this table is an important layout. So this is where I was fascinated by the debt clock, because it spelled it out in real time. So if you go back to 2010, you can use the Wayback Machine. The original money creation variable was the Federal Reserve monetary base. There was no new variable at that time. Then it evolves into Federal Reserve monetary base 2014, then monetary base 2019, monetary base now to U.S. monetary base in 2019 of August 2nd. That changed. Then it was really interesting. April 9th and 10th, 2020, you have money creation. And then it says U.S. monetary base now. Then it shifts to U.S. Treasury dollars now. Okay, what happened? Now, the conspiracy.
COVID.
Yeah, the conspiracy side is so sweet, though, because let me throw one out there that people may laugh about, or they may say this guy's completely nuts. April 10th, 2020. 4/10/20 is the date. Whose initials are in the letters of the alphabet that are 4/10/20? DJT. Go look at the Bloomberg article in 2020 that was written where it said, did Donald Trump just take over the Fed? It was literally that on that day, 4/10/20, that they switched from U.S. monetary base, which is Federal Reserve basically, to U.S. Treasury dollars. Then they made the other change to U.S. Treasury dollars to U.S. Treasury dollars 2025. And then it was U.S. Treasury dollars 2025 to USA Treasury dollars 2025, which means in the year of 2025, there should be a shift to our Treasury coining or printing their own currency that is backed by physical assets, according to this debt clock in 2025. And it's under the USA Treasury, which I've explained the difference between the United States and the USA.
So that
you're
when
saying
that says,
DJT.
well, let me ask real quick, Jenny. So when that says variable right there, what does that variable mean? Are those the actual entities that
if
that
you
they
go
change
back,
the name to print the money, or
they
what?
changed those names on the debt clock on those dates of what the money creation variable was. So if you go back to the debt clock screen.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
And scroll down under that money, a little bit more of that. There you go, right there. So money creation, it says future USA Treasury dollars.
Right.
Okay. That variable there changed on those dates. If you go into the Wayback Machine, on those dates is when they shifted those variables. And the dates matter.
Okay, so that table that you have, we're talking about this future
variable.
USA Treasury dollars. So what's that a reference to? I mean, are they pulling that from the government somewhere, or from the Federal Reserve?
If you highlight it, go up to, so the ironic part right there is it tells you just about Lincoln and Kennedy. It's important to understand the history. One, the central bank formation and the collapsing of those over time happened by certain presidential leaders. But there's been 4 assassinations that were successful in U.S. history. You have Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, JFK. They tried to kill Reagan. Many people say that one of the reasons was because he started a gold commission. If you want to look at just the monetary lens of viewing all of this, right? Andrew Jackson, they tried to kill how many times? He destroyed the central bank, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so...
Yeah, and Garfield wanted a gold-backed currency also.
Correct. Yeah, so it's very fascinating to kind of, well, it's ironic that the debt clock put this up as their 2 things they want you to read about these new Treasury dollars that clearly to them, they know that they're being minted or they're being created right now. And then those will be loaned out to the public at 0 interest and debt-free. There's no interest on that currency creation, as opposed to the central bank, Federal Reserve, that has interest on it, which matters.
If we have our own money, we shouldn't pay interest on our own asset for the country.
Correct. Yeah. If you scroll
then that begs the question. So why
Yeah.
doesn't the Treasury just create these Treasury bills, pay off the debt, and call it a day?
Yeah, I think you're going to live through that event, Jenny.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So DJT has been running around behind the scenes making this all go away.
What I would say is DJT clearly has very, very good attorneys, and these attorneys understand the law better than anybody else, and they know. And what a lot of people don't understand about DJT is he went to military academy in high school. He graduated a captain, and then he went off to the Wharton Business School. He's also was the king of bankruptcy. Well,
yes,
you could bankrupt the United States, roll it into the United States of America.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty brilliant.
You can't even be serious.
I don't know. It's a theory. If you scroll
why not bankrupt the bad corporation that owes all this debt that's not us? Bankrupt them, and we start over with our own cash, with our own printing out of our own treasury.
Yeah. That's what I think. That's probably an important point overall. You know, you remember the Wall Street movement where everybody was mad at all the corporate entities? What individuals need to understand is that the largest corporate entities on earth are forms of governance.
Yeah.
Because the United States is a corporate entity. It's all through law. And we haven't been taught in that manner, which is okay, because we can change that and we can educate our kids so that the same things don't happen again. If you scroll to the right, also on the debt clock, it says paper currency. So I could talk a little bit about that, which is kind of fun. Or I don't know, how about the Wizard of Oz?
Well, let's just stop 1 second and catch up, because I'm looking. I mean, Lisa cracked me up because she's just like,
Sorry, Lisa.
I mean,
Yeah, jurisdiction, all of these things, they have tremendous implications. It's part of the reason that I believe the Ivy Leagues are being attacked, because I think that the Ivy Leagues teach this in their law schools. So a lot of those attorneys are in the know. Whereas if you attend different law schools, you're not taught that. So you're at a competitive disadvantage when you're reading documents. And the other question is, where are the official documents? It's literally national treasure in a sense. If you read about Fort Knox, we moved most of the most important documents to Fort Knox in World War II. Well, that was pretty interesting, right? So there's a lot to unpack from that standpoint. Do you know about the Wizard of Oz allegory to money?
no.
Okay, so this is a fun one. So we always watch the Wizard of Oz, and it's in our, I mean, most kids know of the book. What Baum was actually trying to tell the American public was a story about money. And so if you read the second article I wrote, basically I put a chart in there that lays out how the Wizard of Oz matters. So first, it's a yellow brick road. Okay. In the book, Dorothy is wearing silver slippers.
No, ruby slippers.
No, in the film, it's ruby. In the book, they're silver.
No, really.
But that's
what I
a
get
big
for not reading
distinction.
the daggum book.
Why ruby in the book? Who else wears ruby red slippers? The Pope. This is
okay.
Yeah. So you have the yellow brick road. You have the silver slippers that walk along the yellow brick road. You have Emerald City, which is green. Our money's green. That was somewhat a slight at President Lincoln of the powers to be who took him out. They then made our money green, right? They put the individuals on our money who tried to change it. Lincoln's on it. Jackson's on it, right? These guys matter. And you basically set up in the story, Dorothy can go home at any time. You can return back to the Constitution. You return back to sound money. The Tin Man, tax identification number. The Straw Man is the Straw Man Corporation. The Lion is the Cowardly Lion, which is a slight to the politicians, because they're all playing the game and they're all talk, but when it comes down to it, will they really change it for the people? And Dorothy can go home at any time is the point, right? And you have
I froze and missed half that. I'm going to have to go back and watch my own.
Jenny froze. Well, and in the meantime, Eric, I guess on this mountain of debt, they build the current modern world. You know, infrastructure, everything else is being built on top of that, you know, with all that debt. And if they reset, then we just have it all, I guess.
That's right. And that's where, so from the cryptocurrency side, one thing I think matters, I do think language matters tremendously. If it's a coin, you're probably in good shape. Bitcoin, Litecoin. Nobody has heard of Redcoin. I tend to be a little bit of a fan of that because it's been around as long as it has. It's from
What's
MIT.
it called?
Redcoin.
Remember,
I was saying you have to think of everything's inverted. So greenbacks, reds. Call your new currency reds. It'd be beautiful. You fought the British. They were called the Reds, right? Oftentimes the communism is associated with red. And then if you're really looking at it, there's a lot of clues that would be an interesting choice as a slight of you're in this battle of good versus evil, or Federalist, anti-Federalist, or Republican, Democrat, whatever you want to call it. If you change it to that, it's just it's a switch. And
well, but we don't have anything like that now. You're just saying if we do.
I'm saying it would be ironic if the USA Treasury dollars of 2025 were then called reds when you were exchanging them.
The prediction's right there, Jenny. The prediction is right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I gotta say, that's like super more hopeful than anything I've heard before, because we all know that the debt is a joke. It's just a damn, excuse my French, joke. And that's what those of us who understand that, I think that's why we're so mad about it, because we're like, wait, we're paying private people all this money for letting them JP Morgan here's all your gazillions of dollars. That's just nuts. None of that makes any sense. Anybody who understands that goes, wow.
Correct.
So the United States is basically owned by a bunch of corporatists who are just making money off the backs of the American people who are just slogging around working for a living. So what you're saying, especially after looking at that, I'm going to pop it back up. Especially after you reviewed this and somehow it was making some sense to me when you were talking. So I think, just looking at it myself now again, I'm like, wait, I'm going to have to rewind and see what Eric said about that. But I think I sort of am starting to get the picture. And if we really could, if DJT has really been going around and trying to make this slip, do you suppose that's why he's putting off naming a new Fed chair?
Yeah. So Judy Sheldon wrote the book Gold is Money. That was his choice in his first time in office, and she actually publicly stated that by July 4th, 2026, that he would release USA Treasury backed gold currency. He publicly has stated that. Yeah, I think I have the book here.
So
good as gold.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Michael. Go.
Well, in that book, does she talk about, because I don't know if it's that book or another one that maybe they did. Does that talk about all the other gold that's probably in the United States and the Grand Canyon and all those places also? Is that in that book?
There's some mention of that, but yeah, that's like, I would say if people wanted to learn the most about that, I think there's a commentator, Bix Weir, he's out in California, that has really looked into the Grand Canyon gold and what's all accounted for there. But I also think it's important.
Wait, what's Grand Canyon gold?
That's a whole rabbit trail.
That's a whole rabbit trail. But there was a theory that there was massive amounts of gold in the Grand Canyon, which is part of the rationale as to why the national parks make that area protected. National parks were a way to protect our commodities and natural resources, literally. And so most of the national parks that you find have some form of precious metals, or like we've seen played out on the global scale, the need for vital minerals, vital metals. And
let's not forget rangeland for human food.
Yeah. Yes. So all of these things are fascinating. But if you go, do you think people understand like how bad the trading of paper contracts is for silver and gold? Do you guys think your viewers have any clue?
It's the derivative side. They trade more gold or more silver derivatively at like paper contracts in one day than is mined in an entire year.
Yeah. If you show on the US Decalogue, if you slide it to the right, it'll show the paper to silver ratio. And I think for people listening, it's important to understand what that means, because a lot of times they don't know. So yeah, right on the bottom right hand of the screen, paper to silver ratio now. So it says 363.63 to 1. In the 1970s, if you read the WikiLeaks documents, they came out about the COMEX and London exchanges fixing the price of metals because in the 1980s, the Hunts brothers basically cornered the silver market and tried to squeeze it. That was a huge event. Silver went to $50, almost $50. And then they basically released these paper contracts as a way to manipulate the price. So current day, what they've actually done on the exchange, so big banks, hedge funds, etc., they've traded 363 paper contracts of silver for every 1 physical ounce they actually own. The problem is a silver contract on the COMEX is actually 1 contract's 5,000 ounces.
Okay, stop. What?
If you're taking delivery of a physical contract on the COMEX, it's you can't take physical delivery unless it's 5,000 ounces. It's very interesting.
The COMEX is the exchange that those are on, Jenny. So like in an exchange like that, if you buy, let's say you buy that stock, that silver stock, you can either take delivery of that silver, but it's got to be a minimum 5,000 ounces. Or you can, just roll it or take the money or, do whatever. And that's why we get into these situations is because of that derivative side.
Yes.
But
well, I'm trying to think about 5,000 ounces, how many pounds of actual silver that would be.
Yeah, it's a lot. A lot of people can't afford that contract. But
that's what I was going to say. Then that's how they screw you over then. They just make it to the point that you can't get it back because you can't buy out 2,000 ounces of it.
But imagine if everybody decided or the entities at large, the hedge funds, et cetera, imagine if they get spooked and they take delivery.
Yeah.
What they've done essentially is, Jenny, if you sold your house and then you sold it to me and Michael and another 261 or 361 people, and then all of us decided we wanted to move in on the same day, how's it going to go?
Yeah. No, I mean, that I actually do understand, believe it or not. Yeah. I mean, but it's interesting to me. And you've said this before on the show, Michael, about how manipulated silver is, because I'm looking and it says paper to silver 363.63 to 1, but then gold, not that gold is good, but it's still, I mean, it should be down to like Bitcoin or equal. 134.94 to 1. So how has the gold gotten that high too?
Well, most commodities have a paper to actual commodity ratio. Silver is just the most out of whack because if they let silver break, the market's so small, it will break the banks. There are short positions. It'll cause a short squeeze into the oblivion that makes GameStop look like a joke.
Yeah. And that's well, and just to elaborate on that, Eric, Jenny, the way that works is silver is rehypothecated so severely.
No, don't understand that term. Stop right there.
That rehypothecated means it's sold without actually owning it. So like what Eric said, if you're going to sell your house, you can sell your house to one person because they're going to take possession. But if no one ever takes possession, you may sell your house to 300 people. And along those lines, one of those people may resell that house to someone else. But as long as no one ever takes possession, that's how you get these massive numbers.
Yep.
When I said manipulation, that's what I meant, that no one's actually taking the physical possession of the silver. And if they did, you'd have a massive run. It literally wiped the banks out because, like Eric said, they short it because they know no one's going to take possession, so they can literally just keep rolling it into the future. Really, it all goes back to, Eric, there's zero financial education in the United States. So you already said that. If people just understood how money and these numbers work, you'd look at something like that and you'd say, oh my God, what is going on here? And especially because I believe, Eric, so just to go back real quick, that 371 grains of silver, I think there's an actual gold to silver ratio that the Constitution
15
establishes also, isn't there?
It was 15 to 1 in the original Coinage Act. In 1834, they had to change it to 16 to 1. And again, if you look back at civilizations just historically over time, those ratios always ranged anywhere from 1-to-1 to 16-to-1 in their silver to gold. Ironically, right now, our silver to gold ratio is so out of whack. You're trading at almost 87-to-1 today, which is unheard of.
Yeah. So that would literally make silver, if silver was trading, let's say freely, Jenny, without this manipulation, then if gold, if it's supposed to be in a relationship with gold of 15 or 16-to-1, and gold is, let's say, $3,500 an ounce is what gold is, then silver right now should be $215 per ounce.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
only
and it's
38. And then
Yeah.
remember that $215 per ounce, the $1 bill is supposed to be 371 grains, which is about 0.8%. So let me multiply this. So that would make the purchasing power of $1 if gold and silver were correctly ratioed according to the Constitution, and that would make the purchasing power of 1 ounce of silver right now $1 should actually represent $183 worth of purchasing power. If the numbers were correct.
Yeah.
But see, they don't want you to have that kind of power personally between gold and silver and $1, because they want to control the purchasing power. And the more debt they issue, the more control they get.
It's what's so incredibly frustrating. And it's why I when I'm talking to Dr. Cerato or when I'm talking to friends, it's like, listen, we can try to change all these legislative things. We can give teachers pay raises of $5,000 in a year. But when I control the printing press, it doesn't matter, because I'll just I'll print it onto the ledger, and I'll inflate the amount of currency in supply. I'll give them their $5,000. They don't even know. They think they're making more money, but their electric bill just went up $5. Their car insurance just went up. And so you actually devalue their purchasing power. And then they're wondering why their life continues to spiral and they don't have enough food to, it's just disgusting. And if our legislators don't know this, then they're woefully incompetent and shouldn't be representing people.
Okay, well, sorry.
Yeah, they don't know it. You're 100% right.
And that's one of my biggest frustrations. It's like, that should be a required, if you're going to be a legislator, you need to understand personal financial literacy and our monetary history. I think it's one of the most important ways to tell the story of this nation without having to bring into it political affiliations, any of these topics, just viewing it from a monetary lens. How can you stabilize a society? And I think it's vitally important that you have a unit of measure attached to your money that cannot be manipulated, so that people understand what money is over time.
Well, it sounds to me like what you've said, and I keep going back to the other chart that you were showing, the USA Treasury, US Treasury.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me like it's trying to go, DJT is trying to manipulate it in the right way. Am I wrong?
Right. I think it's been ironic that recently, what does he keep saying? I'm not gonna fire the Fed chair. I'm gonna fire, he's incompetent. He should lower the interest rate, the basis points by 3%. We should be the lowest. He's telling you he's going to do that, in my opinion. It's just when, right? Now, I also don't like to put tremendous faith in individuals, but I think if you're looking at it from a global perspective with what's happening with the BRICS nations, what's happening geopolitically, and the fact that all of them are under the same system. There's only 10 island nations on Earth that don't have a central bank. And so this Fed also tracks back to the International Monetary Fund, to all these other larger legal entities. So it's not like this is just an issue with the United States of America and our people.
But see, then that to me actually solidifies the, if you will, crazy thinking that we are being manipulated by globalists who, like Dana says, remember, you'll own nothing and be happy. So it sounds to me Like
Yeah.
that's, I mean, what you're saying actually makes sense of the quote conspiracy theory.
What
That
I would say, go ahead, Jenny. I want to show you something.
well, you interrupted me and now I'm done.
Well, when you talk about that, like global conspiracy theory, I mean, I would urge everybody to go read this book. This is Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. I've talked about this book several times on this show, but this is literally these large conglomerated banks. They go into all these countries. They loan them a ton of money, knowing that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they're going to default on their bank loan, and the bank is going to own all their assets, own their water, own their natural gas, own all their natural resources. I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory at all. I mean, he facilitated this. He was the go-between between these countries and these large corporate entities, you know, and then,
Sure.
you know, don't forget about our favorite book of all time, The Killing of Uncle Sam.
That
Now,
needs to be required reading in every school.
I don't know if you've read that book or not, Eric, but if you haven't, I would read this. This is one of the best books on the financial history of the United States, in my opinion, ever.
Just the history.
Awesome.
The actual history, not the made up stupid history we put in schools. It's the actual history. Okay, so
if go back to that clock and go to the bottom right hand corner, because it's probably a good way to show that maybe what I'm saying from what this website has been portraying. Do you see the USA dividend dollar?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Fed fiat dollar loss in value, it's lost 96.23% of its purchasing power since 1913. So again, I argue with my mom about this all the time. You know, that's why they want you to buy bonds. The terminology matter. A bond is to put you in bondage. A mortgage is a death pledge in Latin. You take out a mortgage loan, right? These terms are not cool. And if people understood them, they'd feel very different. But that USA Treasury dividend dollar, what they're saying is over a 10-year period, if let's say hypothetically it launches in 2025, it will actually appreciate in value 34% over a 10-year period.
Wow.
Well, so I wanted to put this up because Lisa says, Jenny, do you think this could be the plan everyone keeps saying DJT has? Well, you know, I kind of wonder about that now because the dude did go to Wharton Business School. He does have the one thing you can never argue about DJT is that he doesn't have a 100% command over the idea of money. I mean, he just understands that's his job. That's his business. That's what he does. Yeah. So it would totally help him out to flip this animal on its head and get rid of the Fed, because then he benefits from it probably even more than everybody else does. But a rising tide floats all boats, and it would help everybody, right? Sure. So I don't see how one of the richest men in the world wouldn't be going, I have this steering wheel at my fingertips right now, and I can see where the boat is going to be going, or I can steer the boat in the direction I would like. So I don't know. I'm starting to think maybe I need to shut up and just let him do his job, because if he does that, and that does happen, it makes the U.S. a better place instantaneously.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's the whole that's the whole thing. Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing with the debt. I mean these people with these financial wizards, I'll call them. You know, they have figured out how to actually monetize this fake debt that's being printed out in one way or another. And when you look at it, Jenny, we should literally be in a deflationary situation. The value of our dollar, the purchasing power of our dollar should be growing, not going down. I mean, it's the global unit of currency that's, you know, was put in effect with Bretton Woods back in the 60s, I think. But ultimately, the way that it works right now is the more it goes down, the more power and control that those bankers have. they don't want it to go the other way. So you've got to have someone, whether I mean, I don't know who else it could be, Eric, if Trump doesn't flip that switch. I mean, who else could ever go in there?
Well, that's why
flip
when
that
he
switch?
chose Scott Bessent for the Treasury Secretary, I think it was a critical move. A lot of people don't know, like single-handedly, Bessent, in conjunction with George Soros, brought down the Bank of England. I mean, that he's actually on record discussing it, and the way that they did that basically was through currency manipulation, and they had enough purchasing power to do it.
Oh God, I totally remember that now.
Yeah.
Why do
I mean,
I
a lot of
remember
people
that?
got hurt through it,
Because
but I think
the
Bessent made
same
like
thing
$1 trillion
happened
in a
in
day.
Greece and in Cyprus.
Yeah, that was a whole, yeah. So the other point that I think matters in the scope of what we're discussing here is how could you actually do it? If you revalue gold, let's say you revalue it to $20,000. The Treasury right now, I think the Treasury's gold value, and I don't want to be quoted on the exact amount, but it's something like gold is at $42.34 on the books of the Treasury, right?
Yeah.
So if our Fort Knox has our gold reserves of 6,000 tons, whatever we have, then you would multiply it by that $42, and that would be what you have. Well, if you revalue that to $20,000, why you want to hyperinflate the currency is then you can hyperinflate the amount of dollars that you have, which decreases its purchasing power, which means you can buy back the debt at a cheaper value. So when you do the budget item on the Treasury balance sheet and you revalue the gold, then you can purchase the debt back at a cheaper rate, which is why he's saying the Fed needs to lower the rate, because we'll save, $1 trillion by lowering it 3 basis points, 3 percentage points. That's huge. So a revaluation of gold and silver would be a way to do that on the cheap.
Wow.
And they've done that historically overnight. I mean, in the 1920s, we went through that into the 30s.
Yeah,
they revalued
sure.
gold from $20
Yes.
to $35 overnight. That's a substantial change, which
Sure.
is why you're talking about a tremendous wealth transfer.
Yeah. So gold, I just looked it up, Eric. Gold
Wow.
is $42.22 per ounce right now. And think about it, Jenny, actual gold itself is, $3,500 an ounce.
I know.
So on our books, it's roughly 90%, 90% less.
Okay, stop. Then I'm confused again. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
By law,
huh?
on the U.S. Treasury's ledger, a gold's value is still $42.23.
Oh, now I understand. But
If
the
they want-
market.
That's right. The market price
has
is
inflated it.
$3,300 for an ounce of gold.
Okay. You're
If they
giving me
revalue that,
brain infarction, Eric. Stop it.
I'm sorry. If they revalue that, though, they change it from 42 overnight to, again, Bitcoin's at $117,000 right now. Let's say they do $20,000. They can purchase all the U.S. debt back at minimal pricing using their gold reserves and then start anew.
And then we could just get rid of the Fed.
That's right.
We could just say,
Yeah.
you know what? We are done with you people.
Well, and right now the Federal Reserve does that. I mean, that's their track history anyway, Eric, is in the past when we first had $1 trillion in debt, that doesn't really seem like a lot of money. But if you fast forward and you print, 10 trillion, now that 1 trillion that you had 10 years ago really isn't that much money, and you can pay that off pretty easy with the new 10 trillion. It's just like a perpetual Ponzi scheme that they keep doing. They keep lending more and more money so they can pay off the old money, in a way
OTA.
Yeah.
It's the best Ponzi scheme ever perpetuated, probably in human history.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, Eric, we're coming up on 1:30, and it's not like I want to get rid of you, but I warned you before we got on this morning. I said
Sure.
this is going to go really fast, and you're not gonna. It's always
there's a lot of information
academic
covered.
until you start talking, and then it's like.
Well, I do want to ask Eric another question before he gets off. I mean,
Okay.
even without Trump, signing some executive order or something, I mean, can't they utilize like the Gold Reserve Act to actually revalue that currency back into how it should properly be revalued?
Yeah, I certainly think Congress has the power to do that, but I'm not confident that they're going to pursue that in a sense of this is the most important part of the entire system. If the powers to be, whether they own Congress, if they lose control of this ability to print, they lose control of a lot. And so it's kind of that last battle. Yeah. And I think it would be somewhat naive to think they were going to change that now, given how long we've gone. I mean, literally our entire lives, we've been under this Ponzi scheme, right?
Yeah. Right.
Now they still had silver in the coinage and in the content until, again, 68. But, most people don't even know that. They don't, it doesn't conceptualize in that manner. So that's why
never been taught.
And that's why, thing.
Again, I'm plugging the magazine, but Red, White, and Blue, we're going to talk about things like that, because even for kids, it's a basic concept. I'd say around third grade, they can understand weights and measures in a true sense.
And if you teach them when they're young,
yep.
Their brains are better and they get it. Because I'm sitting here going, it's giving me like some kind of brain infarct to try to wrap my head around this. But kids don't have that. I mean, they're all those new little neurons zipping around in there. They get all of that stuff so much faster. Well, let me ask you, we've had a bunch of questions and comments that have come up, but I haven't been able, because I've been so fascinated just trying to understand what you're saying. But Dorn did get, how do we know how much actual hard U.S. currency, and by that I'm sure he means silver and gold, is in circulation, and does it even matter?
Yeah, I think that's part of what we're saying about the problem with a derivative-based system. Is the truth of the matter is the amount of actual physical paper fiat currency that's been printed, if everybody went to the bank to take that out, they don't have enough right now.
Right.
So you're really already operating on a digital system. It's just digits in your bank account.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, crap. Yeah.
That's hard for people to hear, but that's actually the truth. And so when you're saying I'm telling you, the FDIC, $1.31 for every $100 that they've insured, that's a heck of a great job to have. I'd love to have an insurance company like that.
Well, but I do want one thing before you get off here. And guys, I'll try to get some of your comments in after Eric has to go on. But Lisa said this: wind up the show with Michael and Eric telling us in one short sentence. I don't think that's going to happen, Lisa, but I'm just saying. The best, worst places to have our money now. I realize they can't give us financial advice, but they know stuff, and we won't tell anyone, we promise. That's what Lisa says. She won't tell anybody. But I do think it's important. I do think she has a good point. I mean, if you had something to tell us, obviously we need to tell our legislators. I mean, every legislator we possibly have, we've got to get back on the gold standard, go back to the gold act of whatever that was.
I'm personally more of a fan of the bimetallic, trimetallic standard.
Okay.
I think that's uniquely distinct, and that's why I recommended that Coins Financial School. It's a great book. So if people homeschool their kids, I would encourage every homeschool family to read that book and read it with their kids, because it gives illustrations as to why you need the bimetallic and not just the gold standard. There's important context there. The Silver Republican Party in the 1890s, a lot of people probably have never heard of that. Their party color was vanilla ice, which is ironic. But basically, when we switched just to a gold standard, it hurt a lot of people out west and a lot of farmers.
Okay.
Because the bankers always had the gold on the east. And that was, again, going back to the Wizard of Oz, that was what Baum was discussing there. It was the wicked, the east, the wicked witch of the east, right?
Okay.
And so this has been playing out over time. You need to stabilize it through that. And then free coinage was an important point, because you gain, work is rewarded. It's like Bitcoin. When you mine Bitcoin, it's proof of work. That's different than just, here, we're going to just print this out. So when you would mine, you take it to the mint, you got rewarded for your work. And that was free. That was a government service. So what would I'm not giving financial advice in any manner, way, shape, or form, because I'm not a financial advisor. What I would say is what is true and has always been true is that sound money is gold and silver coinage in the physical.
You want them in your possession.
In your possession, because you see how many paper derivatives are there. Now, I would also put an asterisk there. It is very, very easy to be scammed in that world. There's a lot of numismatics. There's a lot of different terminology. We talked about the difference between a round and a coin. You can make a relationship with gold and silver coin shops locally. There are some throughout Oklahoma City. I think you just have to be careful about who you're dealing with. AppMex is in Oklahoma City. That's one of the largest bullion dealers in the world, and it's headquartered right in Oklahoma City. Prices are online. It's very transparent. You may think it's crazy. They'll send it to your doorstep in a package, and you'll be depressed when you get 1 ounce of gold and you realize it was $3,500 of your paper.
Yeah, I know.
Money. and then you realize.
But guess what? I mean, I actually have a few of them that were purchased when it was much, much, much cheaper than that. So
if you track back, I think it's important to do things like that. And look at the 1980s. If you could buy an ounce of gold for $200 an ounce and you put most of your retirement into that, and it was $3,300 today, you'd be in a far better shape than most people have been in the stock market or any entity like that. But financial advisors can't make additional money off of the sale of gold. Once you own it, you are your own central bank. You're decentralized and you're able to operate in your own economy.
Well, it seems to me like silver would be the best bet right now because it's so undervalued in the market. You might as well just go buy a truckload of that and then when it all falls to pieces, you go, would you like some of mine?
Michael, what do you think? I hate giving financial advice. I just want to present some of the.
Well, I'm not giving any financial advice.
I've talked about it several times on here. I would, I like gold and silver. I have gold and silver. Actually, Jenny, we did a show on that, Jenny, when we did the show on money. Yeah. When I brought some of my gold and silver and, showed it.
Nice.
But my biggest deal is you have to have it in your possession. You don't want it in a depository, whatever it is. If it's not in your possession, if there is this large reset, and Jenny, you and I we did that other show with all the securities about how they're really not owned by you. They're owned by these subsidiaries going up, up the chain. And if
you don't even have a right to them.
Yeah. And if a bank fails along the way, you don't get that. I mean, they've already had court cases. They've had, multiple decisions like that. I mean, I am a big crypto guy. I've been in crypto a long, long time. And, anybody that wants to talk to me about that, email me. I'm happy to talk to you about it, walk you through how to do it. What I think is the safest, what I think is going to be here 20 years from now. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, you gotta have actual commodities in one way or another.
Yeah.
I agree. All right.
The articles that I wrote there, I think they're over in the chat there. If they want to read those, it'll provide a little bit more, probably more questions than answers, but that's okay.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do is I usually write up something from our podcast, and I definitely will today. I'll just stop everything and do it so that I can put those articles and then the books and the links to the magazine and all that stuff, because there's no way to get that on the podcast. So I'll just make a post on our website about it and add everything in there. And then that way you guys who are watching this morning can send friends and family members there. And then, we'll get out the information like that. But we probably need to have you on again.
Sure. I'm happy to come on whenever you want. I didn't really go through the complexities of a lot in the articles. That is, I think, fascinating history, but I'm happy to come back on and answer questions, or if people have questions what's the best way to contact me? I'm terrible. I'm traveling around everywhere. So I'll just come back on.
Yeah, we could kind of do a series with
Yeah.
on each article, maybe spend an hour on each article over, 3 or 4 shows or something in the future.
Ironically,
we could do that.
If you click on that deck clock, kind of a last thing, on the 4th of July of 2025, from January 21st, they hadn't posted anything on this site.
Okay, now wait, stop. What?
From January 21st of 2025, the secret window, if you slide over and click on it, there was no update on it at all. Well, on the 4th of July, click it, they updated the secret window, and you could see there's a new money revolution. Click the free PDF download.
I downloaded it. I just haven't.
There's 30 slides there that talk to you about the monetary history, and that's why I'm saying the credit unions matter. They actually spell out how they would reset it at the state level. There is so much to unpack. I literally took one slide and I wrote 7 pages. And so it's just, that's why it's very hard. You try to scale this down for people to get, but even just, there's important dates, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. There's all your failed currencies.
You know what makes so much sense to me as we're talking? Because like you, I've been in education, but I've been in education a long time. And it makes so much sense to me. I mean, obviously on a general basis, why you would want to dumb down education. I mean, because the stupid populace is easily led. I mean, that's the biggest one. But why you would absolutely, if you're a globalist who owns a global bank that is trying to force people to pay them interest on the money that they're loaning, you wouldn't want anybody to know your scam. You don't want them to know that. So if you don't want them to know that, you're certainly not going to make any information aware, or anybody aware of that information by teaching it to them. So I think probably the best thing that we can possibly say, I've downloaded that, Michael. I'm going to upload that into the article that I'm going to put on the website today, because I just think if we would put everything in one place, everybody could share it. And I think we just need to share it with all of our legislators. I mean, even the ones that we know aren't going to listen. But we do need to do that. So, well, Eric, I'm going to get you on your way since it's almost 1:45 into it. But yeah, I'll work with you and we'll get you on again.
Sure.
Maybe in a month or so, and we'll maybe just decide we're going to talk about one article or one thing.
We can, and I'll set it up so we can go through slides. It'll be easier on everybody.
I think that would be so much better because, I mean,
information overload.
It's a complex topic.
Well, but listening to you two, I feel like I'm in a room with a bunch of mean girls who just aren't letting me in on who likes who.
Well, we really like you, and that's why we're talking about this. So it's a critically important topic.
That's so funny, but you know what I mean. I mean, all of us need to be on the same page, and I do think, Eric, if you did some slides and we went through them one by one, and we could kind of confine our talk to that, I think people would be doing the aha more often. Yes.
I agree.
All right. Okay, so I'll work with that. You have fun traveling around with your family. Thank you so much for being on with us today. I will have to take some ibuprofen here in a second. My brain does hurt, but I'm very glad we did that. I enjoyed it and learned way more than I probably even thought I could today.
Awesome. Thanks.
So bless your heart for that. All right. Well, you travel safely, and we will speak, and I will get with you and we'll get you booked on another show.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Talk to you soon. All righty. Bye. Oh my goodness, that my brain hurts. And we have like
Well,
8 million comments. And let me try to get through some of them because I just feel like there were some good ones, but I can't.
yeah, too bad Eric had to go. But I do want to make the point real quick. I think one of the most important things that he said is that US dollar by the constitutional law is a quantity represented of silver.
Okay,
I mean,
see,
if
that
people
was
can really understand that, they'll really
that's
start
what I
asking
think we
some
need to
pretty
focus
major
on when it
questions.
comes. But I think that's what we need to focus on when he comes back on, because I don't think people understand
Yeah.
that there is law on the books.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
just not following I mean, not like everybody at this point knows, yeah, we got laws in the books and we just don't follow them, because that's the problem with the justice system and why people wanted DJT in the first place, because they're like, we know justice is screwed up. People only follow the laws that they want and make you follow the laws that they want. That's how this whole game is played.
yeah.
So I think people understand that, but I do think that I know that knowledge is power. And if Eric would come back on and say, here is this law, here's this law, corresponds to that, this is what this does, we just hammer our representatives, elected representatives, with that and say, you need to make this happen. The law is on the books, make this happen.
Well, and why do all those reps cave, Jenny? Because they can get endless amounts of federal money at basically zero cost to them. They can go do whatever the hell they want to do. I mean, that's why that bank has so much power, because, you know, I've kind of mentioned to you before, there's a thing called the Cantillon effect. And that's the closest people.
The what?
The Cantillon effect. You can look it up. It's an economic principle, but the people that are closest to the money printing, they're the beneficiaries. So basically, your government is the closest to the money printing, because they print the money for the government, then it kind of trickles out through everything else. So us at the bottom, there's no benefit for us whatsoever when they print all this money. In fact, it's a hidden tax on us, because you think your 401k is so high, your house value is so high. All that means is your dollar that you have over in your bank account is worth zip, and it's going down even more. You think you got so much money and you don't. It's all fake. Okay, hit the comments.
Okay. Well, of course I love this one. Well, and then that we need to get Eric to talk about this, because I don't know what I don't know anything about the money from China, but but hold on though. Does it even really matter? Because if, like Eric says, we were to just reset things back to the law like they're supposed to be, does it even matter? You ask what? It only matters what we have.
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you have that entire reset, I mean, China's only in play because they own so much of our debt.
Yeah, that's it.
Because they monetize it. They monetize our debt, and they sell it to all these other countries. And
okay, and the mini print isn't gold back, but then remember Eric said though, Dana, that going to the gold, back to the gold standard, isn't going to work until we make gold comport with the law. Right? Am I right?
Well, and it's got to be properly valued.
Right. But it has to be properly valued according to the law. Right? That however many grains, the law that Eric was talking about.
Yeah, 371 grains of silver, and then there's an actual ratio between gold and silver.
Yes. So
for the US dollar, the actual dollar itself is supposed to represent.
Until we get the gold reevaluated according to law, then returning the gold standard isn't going to help. Lisa, all of this in one class would be extremely overwhelming. Yep. And I'm with Lisa. The amount of fraud that corporations have committed against the people is mind blowing. We've been dumbed down for a reason. It's okay. I love learning about this stuff. And, that's the difference, I think, Lisa, between us and everybody who watches this show. People who watch the show want to know. They don't want to pretend they know, or they don't want to be ignorant. And so I agree. I mean, we should be teaching it and knowing it. And yeah. Blame Alexander Hamilton. Taxation is a slippery slope. We had a Revolutionary War to fight it, to only embrace it years later in the Constitution. Yeah. Wash, rinse, repeat. Shaking my head. She's so smart. All the world's a stage. A little Shakespeare too. She knows her Shakespeare. Here, because that gold in the ground. She looked it up. I'll show you that in a second. And that's funny. Don't you think that's funny, Michael?
Well, I mean, we could do quite a few shows on that, on all the rabbit trails. We touch on them. We touch on them here and there, and then that's kind of the end of it.
Well, and I think Eric said he's hoping that's going to happen to this year, according to the chart that we put up. So, and this is true. John Boy says they do the same thing with cattle, sheep, and hogs. They will sell a piece of it, right? So it's not the same thing as selling the whole thing. Okay, so we already did that one. We did that one. Trust me, our legislators absolutely do not know this. I would say yes. Whoa, Eric, common sense for legislators. Be careful. Okay, we talked about that one. Running out of conspiracy theories are all proving to be true. So Wendy said and remember, Wendy is a geologist by trade. There are placer and lode deposits in Arizona. Interestingly enough, I don't see a mark on the legend for gold in Grand Canyon, but there is a uranium mine. Great way to keep people away from a mining district. Ah, that's true. Didn't think about that. Dana says, read The Art of the Deal. That may help somebody see how smart GJT is. Things aren't as they appear. You can't tell people. You have to show them. Well, that's true. And we talked about that one. Think about the many corporations filing bankruptcy, businesses closing, CEOs stepping down. DJT did EO 13818 and EO 13773 that block properties and business seizures of those involved in trafficking and corruption. That block properties and business seizures. Dana, I'm not sure. You're going to have to make that a little more clear to me. Ponzi scheme, yes. Many states are passing bills to allow gold and silver to be used as currency. This isn't by accident. Things are transitioning to the gold standard. So Dana is believing that this is happening. Sean Roberts and Nathan Don tried to pass legislation related to gold and silver, and it didn't go anywhere. Sounds like, well, we did that. Cody Maynard did pass legislation this last session on coinage, but somebody will have to look me up. I'm not really sure which one it was. How will debt owned to foreign countries be? I think that's the problem. We don't own debt to foreign countries. I think the problem is that they own ours. Us. Oh, they own ours. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know, Dorn. I'm not Seems we have much to learn. Yes, ma'am. Impossible to scale down when we know the real history and see why they wanted to dumb us down. So we compiled the didn't question, just went along. Honestly, that's just the truth. Yes, we do need to send it to legislators. I'll get that done today. Justice system doesn't follow constitutional law and then mocks people when they use it. And I do agree with that. Eric said that we know that law schools we're directing attorneys away from what the real thing is. The corporate world in the USA twist the law to favor them, then lobby our elected to either ignore or change it to suit them. And I agree with that. Correct. It's a process, most of which is playing out outside of the public. Block meaning seize. So you're saying, okay, so Dana, you're saying that he signed those things and they seize the assets of people involved in trafficking and corruption. That's what you're saying? I'm sorry to be completely, but Eric's blown what a little mind I had left. I'm outside and typed that last blind. Butchered it. I realized I need a few financial literacy classes. That's a good question, because I've heard that copper is coming up in value. I actually have a little copper.
Yeah, all those metals, all those precious metals in one way. I mean, the thing is, you have, like, when you look at gold and silver and copper and all those metals, the only one that's not like has a very serious use case outside of jewelry is gold. Because silver is massively used itself.
Yes.
And, it's once you use silver, like in a solar panel or whatever, I mean, it's gone. It's you're no one's going in there to recover the silver out of gold,
right?
And palladium and copper, all those metals, they're being used. Gold's not really, outside of just a store of value. But
no, there's one process that gold is used in almost exclusively, and I can't think of what it is. It'll come to me. We learned about it in chemistry class. But there is one. So gold is used industrially.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm not saying it's not used at all, but like on an global industrial scale, it's not used and not recovered in one way or another.
No, correct. That's absolutely correct. Yes. Okay. Well, I think we've done it, and it's 1:56. Holy cow. And I think we got everybody's, questions and comments, and do absolutely watch. I will just drop everything and get that thing up so that we can get all of the links that Eric shared with us, because I think they will be very helpful. Yeah. And I just need to understand the difference between US and USA.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, the United States corporation legally filed bankruptcy, back after the Great Depression, Jenny.
See, I don't, maybe that's where we start with Eric when he comes back. I don't know, because I'm not, again, honestly, this show has tweaked I mean, man, I'm your quintessential not great with money person. I mean, I have never really understood money. Money doesn't, I'm not one of those people that you're going to give me $5 and then you're going to come back in a week and I made you 20. It's not going to happen. I don't understand how that works. It's just, I go back to the parable of the bad servant in the Bible, and I'm like, but Jesus, I wasn't trying to be bad. I just didn't know what to do.
Well, you know what I hate, Jenny, is you rewind back in time, let's say before Nixon took us off the gold standard.
Yeah.
If you saved money, you could seriously get ahead by saving money, because it was tied to an asset like gold. You can't save money in today's time. I mean, everything is designed to make you consume or get rid of it, or whatever, because even if you try to save, $10,000 today isn't going to be worth anything, 5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we've all gotten to the point now where we realize that you just simply can't get ahead. So, my youngest daughter, I have to go through the list of them. My youngest daughter came home she moved back in for a little bit again. She's my bouncer. Boing, boing. Anyway, she was saying, okay, so yeah, I'm not going to stay here very long because I'm going to go ahead and get an apartment, because long story, but her life is in a little bit of flux right now, which I completely understand. But she said, well, she needs something with like a 6-month rental lease. Well, there just aren't a lot of those out. And then if you find a 6-month rental lease, then it's just ridiculous. I mean, crazy expensive. So we were talking about it last night, and her boyfriend was over, and we were sitting down and talking about it, me and Dave and her boyfriend. And she said, well, this is this really cute place here. I'm going to show you the pictures of it. And she's showing me on our phone. I'm like, yeah, that's a really cute place. It's one of the renovated places that they've opened up downtown. She wants to, go down there because that's where all the 6-month leases are, because that's where most of the transient population is. They're going to school or going to med school or, and they're going here and there. So she says, now shows me a picture of the room. It's one long room. It's got a bed. It's got the way they furnished it. It's got a bed. It's got a kind of a wide area that's got a television on the top of it. It's got a little couch over here. It's like a glorified hotel room. Okay. Just guess at what she would pay a month.
$1,000.
$950.
Wow.
$950. And all I could think of is, man, when I was 33, 34, I was living in a little 2-bedroom home. Now, it was tiny. I mean, it was maybe 750 square feet, but I was living in a little tiny home in the village because I was going to school and I had my daughter and there were 2 of us and I had to have a place for both of us. I rented that house in the village for $350. And that was in, what would that have been? 90. Let's see, I graduated in 92 with my master's. So right in that area, late 80s, early 90s. So think about how far we've come from there, that my poor kid can't even get a 1-room place for $950.
Well, I'll when I first moved down here, and so this was maybe about 20 years ago, I lived in a townhouse right up here off Memorial that was like 1,400 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-level, big living room, huge kitchen. That was like $650 a month.
Yeah. So
garage, 2-car garage.
Yeah. So just even from and that was, that was what, probably 10. When did you do that? Early 2000s?
That was 20 years ago.
Okay. So think on that. I mean, we know the value of our dollar is just going into the toilet, and we know that kids are frustrated by that and all of that. Well, and that's, I mean, I totally hear you, but the problem was that's the only place she can find that'll do a 6-month lease. So, and I'm just not sure I can stand her for 6 months. It's not that. I love my daughter. She's a precious child, but she goes, that girl. Okay. Well, so here's what we'll do. I'll reach back out to Eric. I'll get him on again. I think in September, because we're full up for August, I think, but I'll get him on. We'll go back and redo some of the more important things about it. I'll get that blog out today so we can share it, and I'll start sharing it. So look for that. And then we'll go from there. But I appreciate everybody who's been on today. It's tough in the middle of the summer to just get up and go, I'm going to tune into Michael and Jenny and see what they have to say. So thanks for doing that. And please share the podcast today and say, hey, did you guys know anything about this? And try to get it out there, because I do think it's important. I'll make some clips today before I get them up on the podcast as well. But, hang in there and let's, she said it takes roughly 20-30 years for the blue state price to come in more to the red states, and now they're here. Well, yeah, that and a lot of other things. All right. Don't forget, we have the Liberty, Oklahoma conference coming up. I forgot to throw that in for today. I've got to get on that. I got to roll because we've got some sponsors that I want you to be able to see. Got to get that up. So don't forget, libertyoklahoma.org. Go there for more information. I finally started getting some you can register as a sponsor now on the website. I'll have table sponsorships up here, hopefully by the end of the day, that you can go and register if you'd like to. There'll be $100. You can put a table in there for your organization. I think it's going to be a great thing. We've got to be together. It's not a GOP thing. It's just a liberty-minded people thing. So put that on your calendar, November 13th through the 15th at Okana. I think you'll really enjoy it. Went out there the other day with my partner in crime, Kendra Wesson, and we looked at the place. It's beautiful. I think you'll love it. Tried. This is true, right? Retrain your brain. And it was great to have him on. We will absolutely. We'll try to make us financially literate if we go absolutely crazy getting there. So, all right. Anything, Michael? Oh, Friday, we have Kendall Sacchieri on at 9 a.m. You won't want to miss that for sure. You won't want to miss that. Be here with us. We'll talk to her. She's always so much fun to talk to. And that girl is so smart. Holy cow. She needed to get on with Eric. She would have gotten that. All right. Anything, Michael?
No, I just hope we don't have to only depend on Trump to, do this reset, do all this money. Cause I just don't think they're going to let somebody do that, in my opinion. I mean, look at the amount of power and control that these banking cartels, these financial wizards, as I say, you think they're just going to let somebody do that? It's going to be hard for me to just see that happen to benefit us. I mean, I can see them doing a reset to benefit them.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
But not us. So we'll have to see. I mean, I hope.
Well, I think maybe that we just pray that that's going to happen somehow. But the only way it's going to happen is if we become knowledgeable on it, we tell other people, and we educate our elected representatives. That's the only way it's going to get better. So you're not relieved of duty here, peeps. We need to be on this. So, but we're lucky that we have you, Michael, and you understand this. It's a big help to us. So.
It's complex. I try to understand it, but I know the entire system is massively broken, and it's not in our favor in any capacity. It's only getting worse.
It's true. It's not going to happen without a fight. All the more reason the people need to be educated to take back what's theirs. That's absolutely true. All right, everybody. We will see you again Friday morning at 9 a.m. here with Kendall Sacchieri. And until then, enjoy your summer, and we'll see you Friday at 9. Thanks for joining us.